Hey, what's up everyone? This is Matt, the owner of Tales Channel, here with an exclusive interview. This is really awesome. We got Stephen Frost here, the main producer behind Sonic Boom, and Kobatermani456, my good friend, is going to help me co-host. So, Kobe, why don't you introduce yourself real quick, because we want to ask Stephen a completely different question about him.
Alright. Hey, what's up everyone? Kobatermani456 here. Glad to be here, and thank you, Matt, for letting me join you.
Oh yeah, no problem. So, Stephen, what's up?
Oh, not much, man. You know, just busy these days. Ever since our sort of unveiling in New York, it's been, you know, a lot of preparations and a lot of work to get ready for E3.
Alright, cool. So, who are you, what's your history in Sonic, and what is your quest, basically, with Sonic Boom?
It's to find the Triforce, of course. No, who am I? Well, I guess I'm Stephen Frost. I'm a producer at SEGA working on a lovely Sonic Boom project. I've been at SEGA for, maybe heading towards 8 years now, I think, give or take. And have worked on a myriad of projects over the course of those years. Probably the last project I worked on before Sonic Boom was the 3DS version of Shinobi. The packaged product, not the 3D version that just came out a few months ago, but the one that came out a few years ago. And as far as history with Sonic, you know, my history with Sonic is sort of similar to a lot of the fans out there, having played a lot of the Sonic games growing up on the Genesis, especially, and always coming back to it off and on throughout the ages. You know, coming into SEGA, you know, like I said, probably 8 years ago or so, you know, it was a key franchise and still is a key franchise for SEGA. So I've always, you know, spent a lot of time trying to see the stuff that we've done in the past and the things that we're trying to do moving forward, and learn what I can from the past games and sort of how to spin things and twist things and move them forward. But as far as particularly my goals and my quest for Sonic Boom, it's really to try to bring something new to the table to sort of help Sonic, hopefully potentially reach even larger sort of audience. You know, people who may have played the Sonic games in the past and have sort of wandered off for whatever reasons, or, you know, people who have got into him maybe in the early years, maybe the Sonic Adventure days on, you know, the Dreamcast and such, or GameCube, and like that sort of game, versus sort of the type of game that has sort of been put out by Sonic Team in the last few years, mostly like, you know, the Boost kind of games, or even Lost World, which definitely have their place. Specifically, obviously, the fan base really like those sort of games, but we wanted to try to freshen things up a little bit, you know, flip things upside down a little bit, take some of the sort of adventure elements and some of the world exploration, things like that you've seen in the past Sonic games, and then deliver it with a lot of the stuff that you know, current fans expect as well.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, it's really great to, you know, have such a big fan of Sonic, you know, being the producer of this, you know, Sonic the Hedgehog project. So, you know, it's kind of reassuring in a way. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, everyone is really invested in it, and it's one of those things for even people who weren't, you know, even in recent history, huge fans of Sonic. They might have done in the past, but everyone from the beginning really spent a lot of time just learning Sonic again, getting refresher courses, and there's a lot of passion for the character and the type of game that Sonic represents across, you know, everything, the animation, the licensing guys, and the game guys. So everyone is really excited about Sonic. Everyone really spent a lot of time researching and understanding Sonic across the board.
Alright, that's awesome. So, Kobe, why don't you ask him the next question?
Alright. So, who actually came up with the idea of Sonic Boom? Was it Sega, or was it Big Red Button, or was it kind of both of you all working together and putting your heads together?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of a tough question because there's so many parts of Sonic Boom. I mean, Sonic Boom is sort of the the overall kind of initiative for this new sort of interpretation or branch of the Sonic character. So it was like a lot of different pieces, and then eventually coming together at some point. So, and I've said this before, the cartoon guys, for example, were doing kind of their own thing for a while, and this was in the early days. This was a couple of years ago, at least. And they're doing their own thing. They're trying to formulate the idea for a cartoon that's based on Sonic, but really weren't sure of kind of what direction to head in, and they researched looking at the past cartoons, looking at where the property was going. And this is before really the game stuff really kicked in. They were doing early stuff the same time we were doing early stuff, but we weren't really talking to each other. And the same as the licensing guys. Sonic has been a stable property for many, many years. But really each year there's only so many sort of iterations and types of toys that you can make based off of the same sort of character designs and things like that. And so I think they were also kind of spinning, trying to figure out what new twists and stuff they could put on the Sonic franchise. And as we kind of worked more on the game and building up the foundation for what would become the end result, we spent a lot of pre-production time building out, like, what is this world, and who are the inhabitants of this world, what is the history of this world. The BRB guys, especially coming from their background, at Naughty Dog and other locations, we have people working on God of War and people working on PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, and there's for each of those games there's a lot of background and history for the characters involved, and so you spend a lot of time thinking about that. And yes, the characters are important, but what is this world and what is this place that they're going through? And that sparked a lot of just design and sketches about simple things like foliage and what do the forests look like, and what do the parts of this world look like, and you start putting together this impression of this landscape and this world that the player is going to go through. And since we spent so much time on that, the cartoon guys kind of came in, and other people came in and saw what we were kind of doing, and really, I think, got enamored with it. They saw this sort of rich history that we were building to try to kind of explain why things are the way they are. We had different areas of the world already thought out, like, what does this area look like? What does this area look like? And it really, I think, since the cartoon guys were looking for that sort of inspiration as well, they really kind of clicked onto that stuff. And that was sort of the genesis of when at least the animation and the game guys sort of came together, and really kind of tried to connect. And that, I think, was really the start of the whole thought about this bigger than just a game sort of thing. There's always a Sonic game every year, every 2 years, and we know how to release those and things like that. But this was an opportunity to make something even bigger, something that would reach a much larger audience. With the kids out there who watch the cartoons and things like that. And so those pieces started coming together, and once the animation side decided, you know what, we really like these designs, we really like this world, we're gonna work with you to further build out this world. And I think that's where like I said, the genesis of Sonic Boom came out. And that was part BRB, part Sega, part animation, all together as far as what came together. So if you had to say who came up with the idea, I think it's everyone involved as far as those three groups, at least at the early stages of the project.
Yeah, I find it really cool that you were kind of working undercover while, Sonic Lost World was kind of being released, and we knew nothing about this. This was just, in development, so I find it really cool that you just kept it a secret, and then when the release trailer came out, we were like, whoa, this is amazing. So
yeah, it's always a tough thing, especially when you're working on something for a few years, and any game development team will comment on this and understand where you aren't quite sure, right? You see you're working sort of in a vacuum a little bit, what you think is right and what you think is a good direction for the game to take and the animation to take. But, you know, your only litmus test is sort of internally the people who know about the project, and then, you know, whatever sort of focus tests and things like that you do. But it's not like you can share with everyone and get feedback for quite a long time. And so you cross your fingers and you hope that your feelings and your judgments are right, and that, you know, by the time you're actually able to show something to the broader audience, that the decisions that you've made are the correct ones, right?
Yeah. All right, so let's just move on to the next question. But that was a really good, like, you're just making me more excited here. So
Thanks.
So you guys are using CryEngine 3, which you already, you know, said you were.
Yeah.
And, you know, CryEngine 3's been used with a lot of, you know, shooting games, FPS games, and also adventure games. Does it work with Sonic?
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things where a lot of people, and I knew when we sort of talked about that CryEngine briefly, that people were going to be a little bit surprised, because that's not something that you inherently think about. But, you know, from the very first time I saw the early days of CryEngine, even back in the Far Cry days and things like that, it's always had this very lush, green, sort of beachy quality to it, right? It does water well, it does jungles well, foliage and sand and stuff like that. And most people probably weren't thinking about this, but I always think, I think about Sonic's association with that stuff, right? Whether it's Green Hill Zone or water aspects, but, you know, he's the kind of character from the cartoons who's hanging out on the beach. And so I always feel that sort of representation of you know, forest, water, beach, and stuff like that is very, very much Sonic. And even from the early days, outside before I worked on this project, I was like, you know, wow, you know, a Sonic game in this sort of engine, this technology would be pretty cool. So it's just kind of funny now, you know, that we actually get to realize that. And that's the thing, you know, it's the CryEngine. First off, Big Red Button have had quite a bit of experience with CryEngine in the past, so it allowed them to hit the ground rolling with this as far as the tools and things like that. And so we're able to, in the early stages of this project, really iterate a lot and mess around and try stuff and throw things away. You know, the sort of the mantra of the studio is to fail quickly, right? So we're trying constantly different things. No, that's not good, throw it away. No, that's not good, throw it away. No, that's not good, throw it away. Oh, wait, that actually has some potential. Let's keep that and keep iterating on it. And CryEngine is very good at that. It really helped the team to put stuff together roughly, very fast, and see if it's fun or not. You know, even from the basic standpoint of, like, how do these characters move around, how they interact with the world, is that fun? Does that have potential? And so CryEngine really allowed for that fast, iterative process, especially early on in the pre-production phase. And then also, just from a visual perspective, you know, trying to push the Wii U hardware and really deliver on the high quality textures and visual fidelity and variety in the scenery that people are going to expect from the engine. So all those things together are pretty exciting for us, and, you know, we hope that when people get to see this game, they'll understand sort of the merits and the potential of the CryEngine.
I actually had a question about the like the graphics and all. Was it really difficult to you know, work on the Wii U's hardware with the CryEngine 3? Because, you know, we've heard a lot of things from, you know, other third-party developers kind of talking about the Wii U's hardware and how it's a bit different from the 360 and PS3 and, you know, the other next-gen consoles that are out right now. Was it a difficult transition, or was it relatively smooth to where you didn't have too many troubles at all?
Well, you know, I wouldn't say that the experience is any different from any other platform. I think that, you know, we are still in the early stages of that Wii U. We're in the first couple years, and if you think about any other system, learning curve as far as getting engines up and running and stuff like that, is always a little bit challenging at the beginning, and the pros and cons. So, you know, same with the Wii U, getting to understand the hardware, and then trying to take an engine out there and get it working on the system has its own sort of challenges. But, you know, all the partners involved, Nintendo, Crytek, and everyone, were really excited to get this all working. So it wasn't like we were going through this alone. You know, it wasn't like BRB are trying to solve all these problems by themselves. there's a lot of the resources and other people who are excited about this project who are also pitching in and helping out as much as possible. So I think that's a sort of a crucial point. So, like I said, every console has its challenges. Nintendo's hardware is what it is. It has its own unique things, but so does every other system, and you have to really sort of spend time to learn it and get it up to a level of understanding that everyone beyond engineers and programmers can understand it and really get to grips with it. So, during the early stages, that's the challenge, right? Now it's just like, full throttle, let's keep going forward and finish this game. But I wouldn't say it's any more difficult or any more easy than any other platform, as far as console side. There's always a learning curve, and it's the same with the Wii U, so.
Okay.
All right. That sounds really interesting, actually. So let's just skip over this one question because I don't think we'll find out later. But will parkour from Sonic Lost World be a feature once again in Sonic Boom?
No, I can say that it's not the parkour system that you see in Lost World, which is a very specific ability of the character. When you're holding the right trigger to run, and he automatically sort of performs that. We have a large assortment of character animation abilities just through virtue of the standpoint that we're an adventure game, right? They're sort of a action platform or an action adventure game. So sort of the variety of ways that our characters need to interact with the world and the situations that are in are a little bit more than what you'd probably see in something like Lost World, right? Which is still focused pretty much on the speed-based gameplay for most part. So we have things that assist you in the world and allow you to navigate and interact and do platforming and stuff like that. But it's not a system like what you'd find in Lost World, where it's specifically designed, right? And it has like the trail and things like that. We don't have anything like that.
All right, that's interesting. All right, so Kobe, you want to ask the next question?
Sure. Okay, so you all being ex-Naughty Dog developers, we've seen like a lot of similarities to the previous games from Big Red Button, and we were wondering if you're taking some inspiration like from games like Ratchet and Clank or Uncharted or Crash Bandicoot. Like, can you go into detail about that if you all have?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't say that we're taking necessarily inspiration. I think that we utilize the experience that we learned and knowledge that we learned from people working on those games, right? It's not like, I guess the best thing, it's not like we're loading up, Ratchet and Clank or Uncharted or something like that and kind of looking at and analyzing that. That's not what we're doing. We spend more time, analyzing Sonic games in general. So it's the sort of correlations and the connections that you see to past games like Ratchet and Clank or Jak and Daxter or anything like that is purely based off of just personal experiences and knowledge for people who've gone through that. It's not like we're deliberately trying to copy that.
Okay. All right,
yeah. So, as we've seen from previous interviews, you wanted to make this game familiar but new because, we got Modern Sonic and now we got Sonic Boom. So, taking this into account, as you said, we will have 2.5D sections and we will see that incorporated, but will we see other Modern Sonic gameplay elements in Boom?
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that from the standpoint that Sonic is Sonic, and there's certain things that the characters, there's certain ways that the characters are, there's certain ways that they interact with the world. Sonic is mainly about speed, and Amy in this case is sort of about her hammer and her acrobatics and stuff like that. So we definitely pull from a lot of the sort of character definitions and character abilities that you've seen in the past from Sonic Adventure and everything else, Sonic Heroes, etc., etc. So yeah, everything's fair game. Anything that really we saw really sparked our imagination or we thought was really a compelling aspect, we utilize. And whether that's, some 2D stuff or the way some of the speed sections sort of are built, or, how the exploration works, or, Knuckles climbing on walls and stuff like that. It really was not necessarily something like, oh, let's try to make sure that we have enough stuff from modern Sonic or classic Sonic or anything like that. It's just really going through the history of Sonic and pulling out what things do we feel are compelling as gameplay, what things can we kind of twist a little bit or provide something new to it. And that's what really sparked our choices as far as what sort of things we put in the game. So I mean, this game really is inspired by Sonic in general. So you know, anything you sort of see in Sonic is possibly in here, you know, or at least inspiration from it.
All right.
And that's not just 2.5D. You know, that can go across a lot of different things. So.
Okay. So Gobi.
Oh, all right. A lot of old school Sonic fans have been pretty skeptical about Sonic Boom, and we were wondering, how are you going to cater to, you know, old school and you know, some of the newer people who have started playing, you know, the Sonic series?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. I mean, we knew from the get-go that you're not going to be able to please everyone. I mean, you already have, even without Sonic Boom, you still have even at least two very clear breaks in Sonic fans, which are people who like really the old school kind of Genesis era gameplay that is more about platforming and kind of exploration really than speed. Speed is a component, but really the speed aspect of it comes from you being really good at understanding the levels and the platforming,
yes.
right? And then you have the transition to more like Generations and stuff, which is that really high emphasis on speed, the boost gameplay, and things like that. And there's people who really love going super fast, right? And so even then, you've got two distinct groups, and within those groups, there's other like splinters, right? There's Lost World folks. There's people who are just like diehard Sonic Adventure folks, right? And so we're not gonna be able to please everyone, and it's an impossible goal to do that. You know, that will never ever happen, unfortunately. And I wish I could create the ultimate Sonic experience that pleased everyone and united everyone together. But it's really, you know,
it'd be a mishmash of all kinds of ideas put together.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, and so you'd have just a little bit. You'd have like a bunch of small things, and it wouldn't be much of a game, right? You couldn't really dive deep into anything. It would just be like 5 minutes of this, and 10 minutes of this, and 20 minutes of this. So we really went into this, you know, very carefully, but thinking about like what was really important for this Sonic Boom sort of property and the Sonic IP as a whole is to try to bring in more people. You know, bring in more people into the fold, get that new level of excitement, get those new fans in there who can share their excitement with other fans that have been around for a while. And you know, nothing I can say, unfortunately, to long-term Sonic fans is going to convince them either way. They're basically going to see the game or play the game, right, as we get closer to E3 and past that. They'll go to a convention, they'll play it and things like that. And, you know, they're either going to like it or they're not going to like it. And hopefully they will enjoy what they see and they'll understand what we're trying to do. And even then, you know, even if they come out of it and they play a demo like, well, I'm not really a big fan of this, you know, that's just representative of a very small part of the game. We can't show everything about the game at an E3 or something like that. It's like impossible. So that's why I think that hopefully the excitement will carry forth, because you'll see some stuff at E3 and more stuff will get announced and more stuff will get announced, because it's not your traditional kind of Sonic game. You know, like a lot of times if you go and you play a demo for a Sonic game, a traditional, I think, Sonic Team Sonic game, you get an idea what the whole game is going to be like in general. You know what I mean? Like, there'll be twists and changes, like Lost World mix it up and things like that, but the focus is really clearly on that speed and homing attack and variations thereof, and it's like, you know, they'll do variations of that, but it's wholeheartedly a similar experience. And for us, we have like so many different kind of parts and different types of levels and things like that, that you know, we couldn't do a representation of the whole game, of what the whole game is going to be like at a demo at E3 or any other place. It's impossible. So So I mean, to going back to your thing, just believe that what we're trying to do is not change for the sake of change. We really think about everything that we're doing, all the changes, even the character changes, right? Which obviously were huge for some people. Some people came around and they understood why we're doing it, but a lot of other people still cannot get over certain aspects of it, right? Whether it's Knuckles or whatever. But the key thing is that we really, really spend a lot of time thinking about everything that we do, and we don't deliberately try to do something that will offend or will push away Sonic fans. We love the Sonic fans. They're important to this IP. They're important to us. And we hope that they understand that we're trying something new. And if you give it a chance, and you spend a bit of time on it, and don't judge it from anything that I tell you about it or anyone else tells you about it. Play it. Try to play it when you get a chance. Come, look at it wherever you can, and make judgments that way. And that's the only way you can do it. I can talk, your ears till they bleed about how I feel about this game and how excited I am. But I go to bed at night knowing that. I try hard. We all try hard to make a good game, period, even without it being Sonic or anything, but just a good game, right? And then one that also will have the core elements that will please fans, but also be accessible and welcoming and feature that adventure element that hopefully folks from fans of other genres will come in and enjoy. So I guess that's all I can say about that.
All right, but yeah, you just explained all of that.
Yeah, that was really nice.
So we have two quick questions because we know it's running a little. So really quick, if you can compare Sonic Boom to any released Sonic the Hedgehog title, what would you personally compare it to?
It's tough because there's no Sonic game that side by side really fits it. Like, you can obviously see from our discussions and stuff that there's elements of Sonic Adventure and Sonic Heroes, but there's platforming, sort of 3D sort of platforming stuff that you may find in Lost World and things like that. So it pulls from a lot of those, but you can't really narrow it down and say like it's mostly like Sonic Adventure, because it isn't like that completely, and you'll understand that when you guys get a chance to play it and see it later. And that's why normally I'd say, like, oh yeah, it's totally like this, but I don't want people to get a sort of a false impression that if I said, oh, it's like Sonic Adventure 1, they're like, they'll have a picture in their brain, and actually it's not really like Sonic Adventure 1. There's maybe elements that resemble Sonic Adventure 1, as with other games, but the structure of it and the way it's designed is not Sonic Adventure 1.
Yeah.
So that's why that's a very hard question to ask. It's got pieces of a lot of different games, plus a bunch of new stuff that you haven't seen before, really. I don't know. I guess it's an amalgam of a bunch of different Sonic games, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's comparatively to one.
It's kind of like a puzzle, right? Like trying to make the whole thing out of certain elements.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of like it came organically. It wasn't like we said, okay, we must have something from Adventure, we must have something from Heroes, we must have something from Sonic 4. It just, through natural evolution, these pieces came, and when it made sense, we would get inspiration from Sonic games. When it didn't, we would just have inspiration from ourselves, like, what would this be like, and how would this play, and things like that. So that's why, and I know a lot of people ask, like, what game is it mostly like? And it's not. It's its own thing, It has its roots in a lot of these Sonic titles, but it takes it in different directions.
Okay, so it was kind of like you all were making like a completely new experience, a brand new game, and then just added different elements from past Sonic games to make it feel familiar to fans.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say added, though, because it's been that way since the beginning, since the core design. So it wasn't like, we were developing a game for 2 years or whatever, and then at the last bit we're like, oh, we need to add some Sonic stuff. That's not the case. Since the beginning, it's been a Sonic game. It's been very focused on how Sonic and his team go through this world, navigate this world, how they fight, and things like that. And so that's been a core component along the way. But we're always careful on how far we push stuff so as not to alienate fans. You know what I mean? And in the end, I think that decisions we made were good ones. I think sometimes reining things in and really thinking about why things are the way they are in the Sonic universe helps to make sense. And honestly, not that this is a sort of a limitation stuff, but like, you know, the more sort of limitations you put in front of you and challenges, I think the more creative you will become. If you have sort of a carte blanche and anything's possible, creativity tends to be difficult sometimes, but if you kind of put parameters on stuff and say, you know what, Sonic really is this way, we need to have him do it this way, you can come up with some interesting and creative ways to handle those situations.
All right. So Kobe here actually really wanted to ask this to you, and this is our final question here, so go ahead, Kobe.
All right. I was wondering, is the new Eggman design that we've seen recently revealed, is it based on former President Theodore Roosevelt while he was part of the Rough Riders?
You know, oh wait, that's right. You were the one who did. Were you the one who did that really long, thorough analysis on that?
Yes, I was actually.
Yeah, I saw. I was watching that or listening to it on the way home one day from work. No, not deliberately. Quite honestly, I don't know what sort of thing sparked his design. I wouldn't say it was something as extreme as Roosevelt, though, or anything like any living person. I think the core things that we wanted to have come out of Eggman is that he needed to be more formidable and threatening to Sonic in general, right? We wanted people to treat him seriously, and especially more so for newcomers, because Sonic fans, they know Eggman, right? There's no sort of like, it's Eggman, and they know that he's Sonic's, you know, arch nemesis. But for people who have not been exposed to Sonic or forgotten or things like that, we needed to create someone who, when you see him on screen, you know he has a presence about him. You know that he's someone of importance and he's probably the bad guy. But he can't be serious all the time. When he is serious, you have to be able to view him as a threat. But he also has to be able to flick that switch and be humorous like he would normally be in the past, as Eggman would. So it's a fine line between those things. And I think that it's actually even more humorous when you have a very serious, kind of tough-looking guy, and he does something silly. I think it becomes even more humorous. So I think you'll see a lot of points like that when you play the game. When Eggman shows up, you'll see these moments where, like, oh my gosh, this is like serious Eggman. Like, you know, I'm concerned that I might actually lose. But then something will happen where that classic sort of Eggman humor or situation pops up, and you're like, oh yeah, that's classic Eggman. That's kind of funny, you know. So it's that sort of juxtaposition of those two things. But the epiphany I think we had, and I've posted this on a few different places, but when we rotated the egg shape upside down, you know, it used to be where he was sort of rounder in the chest, not in the chest, the stomach area, and it would taper up right to a skinnier top. And you know, we wanted broad shoulders and stuff, and then we just ended up flipping the egg so that the thick part is at the top and the skinny part is at the bottom. And that really helped out dramatically. And that sort of really, if you look at the outline of him, why his proportions are the way they are, where he's got more of a skinnier legs and waist, and then he's got the really broad chest and shoulders. So that was really sort of the core ideas that inspired that design. But we also, as a lot of people said, we wanted him to be like, we went through a lot of different things, like, is he a mad scientist, or is he more of like a general for his troops, or things like that. So there are a lot of designs that happened for Eggman, trying to really sell what he is, right? Because he's a genius too. He's a scientist and stuff. And some of the early sketches and designs of him were based around that. And if we ever get to show them, which I'd like to do at some point in the future, some of the designs for him are really completely different from what you see now, like dramatically different. And they might surprise a lot of people with the direction that we headed in. Yeah, as far as the current design now, no, I wouldn't say he's necessarily he's not based off any one living person, but just under the themes of, like, you know, he has to have a presence, he still has to be able to be funny. You know, he's basically in some ways a general over his troops, right? His robots, etc. And yeah,
okay,
so,
you all did.
yeah.
I think you all did a really good job capturing that, because whenever I did actually see the artwork, it was different, but it was like he was a lot more intimidating, and he was a lot broader, and I really did like the design. So, very good job. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
In my opinion, the designs are different, of course, but I mean, I've gotten used to them, and I really grown on them. I really like them. And the game, or more footage, hasn't even come out yet, and I'm already really fond of these characters. So, great job.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's the more thing is just really understanding why we did it, and it's tough because you can always look back and say, oh, maybe we would have adjusted this, and maybe we would have adjusted this, but we've been working on those character designs for a long time, and with so many tweaks and so many adjustments, and it reaches a point where you're like, does this capture what we need to? Yes. Okay. Let's use this, right, with some tweaks and stuff like that. Because really, you can spend with any of these characters, you could spend eons, right, constantly tweaking and adjusting and things like that. But we really wanted to think about every component, and we really wanted them to be instantly noticeable as Sonic Boom. So even years from now, a decade from now, whatever, you look at those characters, and they're the Sonic Boom characters, right? There's no mistake. And even at Sonic, if we didn't have like the sports tape, and we didn't have the bandana, think about it like this: it would just be the quills, right? Some minor quill changes. Obviously his sort of proportion changes, but and the blue arms. But that would be it. You'd be like, maybe 10 years from now, you'd be looking at like, wait a minute, is that? I can't remember. Is that what Sonic was that? It's not a huge noticeable enough difference to instantly be able to recognize it as something different when they're not next to each other. So we needed people to be able to instantly recognize if that's a Sonic Boom Sonic, or a modern Sonic, or a classic Sonic. And with the other characters too, even though we didn't adjust them all a ton, they didn't need to be completely adjusted as much to the extreme as, say, Knuckles and stuff like that. But the key thing about Knuckles is, and this has been said to death by me probably, is that you have to be able to look at him and say, he is the Mr. Incredible, he's the Thing, he's the Hulk, right, of the team. He's the tank, right? And when he was the same proportions, aside from sort of the hands maybe, proportions as Sonic from the classic days, it's hard to tell that, right? Like, how do you explain to a kid or someone like, oh no, he's the same basic proportions as Sonic, but he's like super strong. He's like much stronger than Sonic. And you're like, well, how is that possible? I don't understand. With everything that I know today, with all the movies and cartoons that I know today, the bigger guy is the strong guy. So I don't understand this. So that's the thing. It's like all these components, like every single piece has been discussed, and we really, really worked hard to not make any changes unless we really, really, really felt that.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually explained that, because that's what I've always thought about, like Knuckles, he's always had the same, physique as Sonic in the past, but, now seeing him different, I think it threw a lot of people off. But honestly, I feel that if Knuckles had had that original design when he first came into creation, I don't think anyone would be complaining at all. It's just that it's just so different from what we've seen already that it kind of throws you off at first, but then you kind of grow to like it a bit more, get used to it a bit more. So I think just some people need time, I guess, to grow on it. But
exactly. And some people will never get it, but it's like, how are you? People have been used to a character for over 20 years, right? I mean, like, give or take, and you can't change that or impact that overnight. Like, you could say that for any intellectual property out there. If you had a character that's been around for 20 years and you drastically change them, there's no doubt there's going to be some sort of uproar or concern about it, right? It's just there's people invested so much time into a particular look for a character. They're used to it. It makes them feel comfortable. So, of course, any dramatic change like this is going to cause issues for them, at least initially.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to just be playing as a red Sonic. I get it. That could climb.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone has to have their own personality and their own abilities and be able to clearly, show that without even moving around, right? Just standing there, you have to have an idea.
Yeah. But, I mean, we went over the time, and I know you're probably busy, so I guess we'll wrap it off there. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean that this is a huge, huge opportunity. So
Yeah, thank you
you
again.
so much.
Oh no, yeah, no worries. My pleasure. You know, thanks for putting together questions and taking the time to talk with me. You know, I've said it before, and I will continue to try to do whatever I can to interact with the fan base. You guys do such a great job, you know, with your videos, and you know, you're always pumping out new content. And you know, even if information is so scarce and so little, you guys always try to manage to do a new spin on it or an analysis of what you think Eggman came from. I mean, I mean, regardless of what it is, that's like a passion. That's a vested interest. You know, it's like a legitimate, honest sort of like of the franchise, and you know, I appreciate that and I applaud it, and I thank you guys for, you know, all your energy and time for doing that. Without, you know, without you guys, my job would not even be possible. So.
Hey man, we're just fans. We just want to support Sonic Boom and everything, and this looks great. So we hope it succeeds.
Wish you all the best.
Cool. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Alright, so thank you so much everyone for watching. Be sure to share this with your friends who are interested about Sonic Boom, want to learn more about it, because we talked about a lot of things, not really that deep into it, but we talked about some of the more simple things, which actually got a little deep, but you know. So thank you once again, Kobatamani456, for joining, and Stephen Frost, a producer for Sonic Boom. And we'll see you all next time. Hope you enjoyed this interview.